I've been around long enough to know that women don't like a pushover. Women want a guy who is decisive, assertive, and knows what he wants. However, in recent years, it seems like we're creating a generation of young men who are pushovers. I'm not 100% sure why. Is it political correctness gone mad? Is it so-called wokeness? I don't know. But one thing I do know is that more and more men are becoming timid. Of course, I'm not talking about all men. There's still plenty of really masculine men out there. And no, I'm not saying you have to pump iron to be masculine. But I've had a few experiences of late that show that some men, especially young men, are severely lacking in confidence. Last weekend, I was on the street with my 11-year-old son, walking to meet my wife and daughter. Here's the basic layout of the street. Here's my son and I. So anyway, we were walking along the footpath when we suddenly heard a blood-curdling scream coming from the alleyway up ahead. There was a young man and his girlfriend in front of us who came to an immediate stop upon hearing the scream. Fair enough. Then another scream came. "He's trying to kill me!" This couple ran. I could see the guy's face as he ran past me. He was scared. I told my son, "I'm going to go see what's going on. Do you want to stay here?" "No, I'll come with you." So my son stayed about 2 meters behind me as I slowly advanced forward towards the corner of the alleyway. Now don't get me wrong, this is not me saying that everybody should recklessly charge towards danger, but in this case, the desperate cries of an unknown lady meant that in my mind, I had no other option but to help. Just as I neared the corner, a young man in a P2 mask came running around the corner from the alleyway, obviously scared as well. As he ran across the street, a few seconds later, his girlfriend ran across too, also wearing a P2 mask. Obviously, he didn't care about ladies first. Every man for himself, more like it. I saw 3 young men approach from the other side. Great, I thought, some help. Then another scream came. "Ah, he's trying to kill me!" As soon as these guys heard that, they turned and bolted. I was by myself again with my son. I cautiously rounded the corner, but I couldn't see anything. There was too much street furniture in the way. But then another blood-curdling scream. "Ah!" Yes, it was scary, but my son and I pressed on and walked cautiously up the alley. As it turns out, it was just a lady with a disability and her carer. I'm not quite sure why she was screaming out, but I think she might have had a mental health issue or Tourette's syndrome or something like that. I saw them up ahead rounding the corner into a shopping centre. The only other 2 people who had gone to help were 2 young ladies. They were probably only 19 or 20. Everyone else seemed to have fled. I spoke to them just to make sure everything was okay. They told me they had approached from the other end of the alley to see if they could help out, but after seeing who was screaming, they realised everything was okay. Then we looked at each other, and then looked at all the people who had run away, and then realised that we were the only people brave enough to come and investigate. I'm not trying to toot my own horn here, but the way they looked at me, they were almost grateful that my son and I had come up as well. It was almost like they were appreciative that there was a man here. Look, they were half my age. I'm not trying to say anything apart from that they seemed appreciative. I was also quite impressed that these 2 young ladies had more courage than all those young men who ran away. Okay, I get it. Sometimes discretion is the better part of valour. Caution is preferable to rash bravery. Our instincts to survive, even at the expense of others, is very strong. But in this case, I felt like I had a duty to help out a fellow human being. Somebody seemed like they were in trouble, and all these men just ran away. The way they acted, it was like there was an active shooter, but as it turns out, it was just a lady in a wheelchair. Actually, as we were talking with the girls, we saw one of the men from before, the guy with the mask on, slowly approach the alleyway. And then, in the distance, we heard the lady scream again, and then the man bolted again. Obviously, he was still scared. I guess he still didn't know what was going on. Anyway, my son and I said goodbye to the girls and went to meet my wife. She was a bit upset that we were late, but I told her the story, and of course, she was fine. I had a bit of a debrief with my son soon after and asked him if he understood why we did what we did, and he responded immediately. "I get it, Dad. If it was Mum or my sister screaming out and we weren't there, we'd hope that somebody else would go and help them, wouldn't we? I mean, we should always help people if we can." He took the words pretty much right out of my mouth. Although he did say he was a bit scared at the time, but he was glad that we did what we did. Look, I'm not saying that I'm particularly brave. When I was in high school, I was anything but. I used to go to a boarding school, but I wasn't a boarder. Most of the boarding students were from the country. They generally had traditional conservative values. They often liked playing rugby league. But one thing they all had in common, they were not cowards. I remember one time we were in homeroom and then we heard a scream coming from next door in the arts/pottery room. It was the art teacher. She had burnt herself on the kiln. These 5 country boys jumped up out of their chairs and raced out of the classroom. They didn't ask, they just did it. A few moments later, we could see them helping the injured art teacher walk out, taking her straight to see the nurse. I just sat there like a mug, too scared to even stand up, thinking that I might get in trouble by my teacher. The next day in assembly, the boys were all awarded a bravery medal. Yeah, okay, perhaps the school went a bit overboard, but the boys kind of deserved it. It was something that everybody talked about for many years to come. Anyway, back to the story. Later that afternoon, after the alleyway incident, my children met up with a bunch of their friends. We hung out for a bit, and then all the kids wanted to go to McDonald's for dinner. The nearest McDonald's was in a bit of a rough neighbourhood. It's kind of famous for having lots of youths hanging about out the front. Some of the mums didn't really want to go, but the kids hadn't been there for a long time, so we decided that since it was still daytime, it should be fine. When we arrived, there were some teenagers hanging out the front, but they were just having fun with their friends and looked pretty harmless. We went in and ordered our food, and my son and I just stood near the counter waiting to pick up our order. There was also another man waiting, probably a guy in his early 20s. I don't like to use labels, but he was pretty much a stereotypical soy boy. Look, I'm a vegan, I drink soy milk, I appreciate the lifestyle, but I like to think that I'm fit, strong and healthy, and certainly don't think being a vegan is emasculating in any way. But some people seem to take pride in being physically weak and servile. That was this guy. So anyway, he was waiting for his soy latte or whatever. By the way, I don't eat McDonald's, I was just there looking after the kids. Soon after, a young Aboriginal lady walked in. Ordinarily, I don't like pointing out people's ethnicity, but in this case, it's relevant to the story. She came up to the guy and asked, "Hey mate, are you waiting in line?" He replied in almost a grovelling way, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't know you were behind me. I didn't mean to get in your way. I should have waited over there. Please, you go ahead. I'm so sorry." He moved aside and let her through. She had a bit of a confused look on her face. She must have ordered online because she picked up her food straight away. As she turned around to walk out, the guy stepped in front of her and started to apologise again. "I'm so sorry about the misunderstanding before. I really shouldn't have been standing there. I honestly didn't mean any offence." She just replied, "Mate, it's okay," and walked out. My son made a very concise comment at the time. These are his exact words: "Cringe." And he was right. It was completely cringe. I don't know if he was acting that way because she was a female or because she was Aboriginal, but he was acting completely subservient, like it was the Queen of England walking in and he was her manservant. It was pretty sick to watch, actually. What should have happened was this: "Hey mate, are you waiting in line?" "Nah, I've already ordered. You go ahead." You know, like a normal person. Look, maybe I'm being a bit harsh on this guy. Maybe he's had some bad experiences. I don't know. But it's not a good look for a man to be so servile. I looked outside and saw the girl talking with her friends. They were laughing and looking inside. Obviously, she was telling them about this little encounter. I feel like the guy was trying to be anti-racist or trying to show that he treats everybody fairly. But by doing so, he did the opposite. He was treating her differently because of her ethnicity or because of her gender. And it just looked lame in the end. Anyway, what am I trying to say here? Well, we've got young men running away from the slightest chance of danger. We've got men acting in a weak and subservient manner towards women, which they don't like, mind you. This is not me endorsing toxic masculinity, not at all. This is not me saying that you should never compromise or never apologise. This is not me saying that you must assert your dominance over a woman, but it's okay to set boundaries. It's okay to be assertive. It's okay to be brave and courageous. It's okay to stand your ground. So what am I trying to say? It's okay to be a man. And guess what? Women like it.